Karl Bryullov's The Last Day of Pompeii, completed between 1830 and 1833, stands as a masterpiece of romantic historical painting. The canvas, vast in scale and ambition, captures the tragic destruction of the ancient Roman city of Pompeii. It represents not only a peak of Bryullov's career, but also a defining moment in 19th century Russian art. The painting's fusion of classical inspiration and romantic expression makes it an iconic synthesis of style and subject. It stunned audiences across Europe with its intensity and detail. The central theme of the painting is the catastrophic force of nature and human helplessness in the face of such power. It depicts the precise moment when the eruption of Vesuvius overwhelms the city and its people. This chaos represents a universal vulnerability to disaster, regardless of culture or time. The eruption serves as a metaphor for nature's indifference to human ambition and pride. The violent contrast between man-made beauty and elemental destruction is at the heart of the composition. Bryullov masterfully renders the emotional responses of the figures: panic, despair, denial, and resignation. Each character in the painting is frozen in a moment of deep psychological expression. The viewer can almost hear the screams and wails of the fleeing citizens. Each gesture is crafted with emotional specificity, creating a chorus of human suffering. This psychological realism marks a breakthrough in 19th century historical painting. Pompeii was buried under volcanic ash during the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. The event killed thousands and preserved the city in remarkable condition, which inspired numerous 18th and 19th century artists and writers. These ruins gave rise to a fascination with antiquity during the Romantic and Neoclassical eras. The preserved frescoes, homes, and temples brought ancient life vividly to light. Bryullov was particularly inspired by the immediacy of the tragedy uncovered by archaeology. The painting was influenced by contemporary literature, especially Edward Bulwer Lytton's novel The Last Days of Pompeii, published in 1834, just after the painting's completion, which also dramatized the tragedy with moral and emotional undertones. Bulwer Lytton's narrative emphasized not just spectacle, but the social and ethical decline of Rome. The novel and the painting both examine how decadence leads to ruin. Literature and visual art worked in tandem to bring the story of Pompeii to a new audience. Karl Bryullov, a Russian painter of German descent, was traveling in Italy when he conceived the idea for this work. His experiences and studies in Rome and Naples heavily influenced the accuracy and imagination of the composition. Bryullov immersed himself in the ruins of Pompeii, sketching on site and studying local legends. The exposure to Italian art also expanded his visual vocabulary. His time abroad helped him integrate classical form with romantic emotion. Bryullov incorporated precise details from archaeological excavations of Pompeii, which had begun in earnest in the mid-18th century. Architectural elements and props are drawn from Roman antiquity. He included accurate togas, hairstyles, amphorae, and household objects based on excavation findings. The setting itself is a faithful recreation of a Roman street scene. These elements create a powerful sense of historical authenticity. The use of chiaroscuro in this painting is central to its drama. Bright red flames and flashes of lightning illuminate figures against a darkened sky, emphasizing the chaos and urgency. Light directs the viewer's attention to moments of emotional climax. It creates a theatrical, almost operatic atmosphere. This contrast between brilliance and shadow enhances the painting's psychological intensity. The painting is a quintessential romantic work, emphasizing strong emotion, sublime landscapes, and individual tragedy over classical serenity and order. It focuses on the inner world of the characters amid outward disaster. The grandeur of nature dwarfs the fragility of human beings. These are hallmarks of the romantic spirit at its most expressive. The canvas is over 15 feet wide, composed with a theatrical grandeur. The figures are arranged almost like actors on a stage, each engaged in their own tragic story. Every square inch of the canvas tells a different subplot. The horizontal sweep of bodies guides the viewer like a panoramic tableau. This epic scale magnifies the tragedy beyond the personal into the mythic. At the center of the painting, a family attempts to escape. A strong man carries his elderly father. A woman tries to save her children, and others flee or collapse around them. Their poses recall ancient statuary, connecting them to classical ideals of virtue. This central group becomes a timeless symbol of filial piety and parental sacrifice. Bryullov uses them as moral anchors amidst the chaos. A subtle and lesser-known detail. Bryullov is believed to have included a self-portrait in the painting. He appears among the panicked crowd, a nod to the artist's presence amidst the chaos. This inclusion invites viewers to interpret the scene as more than historical, it is existential. Bryullov becomes a witness and commentator on human fate. His insertion underscores the artist's personal investment in the painting's message. The painting can also be read as a moral allegory about human hubris, the fragility of civilization, and the eternal cycle of destruction and renewal. The decadence of Roman life stands in contrast to the nobility of human struggle. There is a warning embedded within the beauty of the composition. In every collapse, Bryullov hints, lies the seed of judgment. The precision of anatomy, clothing, and architecture demonstrates Bryullov's academic training and technical skill. Every figure is distinct, with complex poses and dynamic movement. His handling of musculature and gesture recalls the Renaissance masters. The painting becomes a showcase for his breadth of skill. Each detail testifies to years of preparation and study. Bryullov uses a palette dominated by reds, ochres, and deep shadows to evoke heat, urgency, and emotional turmoil, contrasting sharply with paler tones in the figure's garments and skin. The warm palette intensifies the volcanic atmosphere. Cold whites and blues act as emotional foils to the surrounding flames. These chromatic tensions heighten the viewer's sensory experience. The work tells multiple stories simultaneously. Each group or individual character represents a unique response to the impending doom, enriching the narrative complexity. Some people pray, others carry family, and some steal valuables. This mosaic of reactions mirrors real human behavior in crisis. The storytelling is non-linear, much like modern cinema. There are clear echoes of Michelangelo, Raphael, and Titian in Bryullov's muscular figures, compositional balance, and color harmonies, showing his reverence for Renaissance masters. He borrows from Renaissance forms while injecting romantic pathos. This synthesis bridges past and present artistic ideals. The painting becomes a dialogue between centuries of art. When the painting was first exhibited in Milan and then in Paris, it earned Bryullov international acclaim and established him as the first Russian artist to gain widespread recognition in Europe. Critics praised its emotional force and technical brilliance. The painting sparked discussions about Russian art on the European stage. It was even admired by prominent figures like Stendhal. In Russia, The Last Day of Pompeii was received as a triumph of national artistry, elevating the status of Russian painting on the world stage. It gave Russian audiences a sense of cultural parity with Europe. The Tsar himself celebrated Bryullov's achievement. It helped shift Russian art from imitation to innovation. Today, the painting is housed in the State Russian Museum in St. Petersburg and is considered one of the greatest works of Russian art from the 19th century. Its presence is a cultural landmark and a centerpiece of the museum's collection. The painting remains a subject of scholarly study and popular fascination. Millions continue to be moved by its drama. The sky in the painting is both literal and symbolic. It shows volcanic ash and lightning, but also represents the wrath of nature or the gods, enveloping and judging humanity. The heavens seem to mourn and rage simultaneously. The natural world is personified as a force of judgment. Bryullov uses the sky as a narrative element in itself. Men and women are shown heroically and tragically. Men carry the elderly or fight through the debris. Women clutch children or mourn the fallen, showing the universality of loss. There's no clear distinction in courage or weakness between the sexes. Everyone is equally vulnerable before catastrophe. The painting honors resilience in all its forms. Just as the real city of Pompeii was frozen in ash, Bryullov's painting captures its final moments, immortalizing the city and its people in a different form of preservation, art. He stops time with the brush, as ash once did with stone. The painting becomes a visual echo of archaeological excavation. History and art become twin forms of memory. Though the scene is dynamic, there are moments of poignant stillness. A woman collapsing beside a dead body, another reaching helplessly into the air, dramatizing the frozen horror. This alternation sharpens the emotional pitch. The tension between kinetic energy and halted tragedy evokes overwhelming pathos. Movement dies in the act of being painted. Karl Bryullov, 1799–1852, was a bridge between neoclassicism and romanticism. Trained at the Imperial Academy of Arts in St. Petersburg, he brought Russian art into dialogue with Western traditions. He lived between two cultures, Russian and European, and synthesized both. His career paved the way for later Russian masters like Repin and Surikov. His identity was both national and international. With this painting, Bryullov broke from static, idealized historical painting by injecting it with emotion, chaos, and a contemporary cinematic approach to composition. The viewer feels placed inside the scene, not observing it from a distance. It was a precursor to modern narrative art. This new language changed how historical painting was understood. The Last Day of Pompeii is not for sale, as it is a national treasure and part of the permanent collection of the Russian Museum. However, if hypothetically placed on the art market today, its value would likely be inestimable or in the hundreds of millions of dollars due to its historical and cultural significance. The reputation of Karl Bryullov as one of Russia's greatest 19th-century painters, its monumental scale and technical complexity, its importance in bridging Russian and European art traditions. The Last Day of Pompeii is not just a historical recreation, it is a timeless meditation on human vulnerability, the terror of the unknown, and the power of art to eternalize fleeting moments of history and emotion. Bryullov's work invites us to reflect on our own fragility. It speaks across centuries with undiminished urgency. In it, art achieves what time cannot destroy: memory.